Okay, so this is the shower I gotta do here. So it's gotta be kerdi-board on all these walls. There's body sprays here. There's gonna be a vanity over here. There's gonna be a linear drain coming across this way here, curve here, and a lot of plumbing here. This guy's actually a plumber, so a lot of plumbing in here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check these walls, see if they're plumb and in line, and then I'm going to install the kerdi-board and go from there. So this is the second part of this series of videos. It's about a large shower stall with a linear drain, a 72-inch linear drain, and it's just a typical shower with side wall, back wall, and then the other wall, but this one wall is like an accent wall, goes all the way down the plumbing side with a vanity and the toilet, etc. That whole wall is tile, large format tile, 10 by 20. So in this video I'm talking about putting up the backer unit for the tile, and as you'll see in most of my videos I use Schluter kerdi-board, and the reason I do that is because it is entirely waterproof, and when you're using the Schluter system, as I do in this video, that's what is called referred to as a seal system. So what that actually means is that all the waterproofing is directly under the tile, and the only thing that can possibly get wet is the tile, the grout, and water that penetrates behind the tile, so the thin set, and that's where it stops. It can't go any further because the board behind it is completely waterproof. A traditional system is where you put down a vinyl liner, you put down, first of all you have to put down a pre-slope, and don't let anyone tell you that a pre-slope is not needed. It absolutely is. There are some guys on YouTube that say you don't need it. It is absolutely critical. I've seen so many vinyl liners fail because they don't have the pre-slope. So anyway, getting back to the video. So so the vinyl liner, so it goes the pre-slope, the vinyl liner, mud bed, and then tile on top of that, and then you put your wall board up, your Durock, and so in an old-fashioned, let's call it old-fashioned, traditional type shower, when you don't waterproof the surface of the Durock or the cementitious backer unit, there's usually a vapor barrier behind the behind the cementitious backer unit, and that is your waterproofing. Durock, a cement board, is not waterproof. It will absorb water. Water safe, but it's not waterproof. It's gonna soak up all the water. All these backer units, cementitious backer units, they all will absorb water. So the waterproofing is critical, because in that kind of shower the only protection you have against vapor is behind the actual water backer unit. So water can penetrate through the tile, the grout, the backer board, get to the vapor barrier, and then that's where it stopped. So that's actually much deeper penetration of water. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the tile is waterproof, the grout. It's not. I don't care what anyone says, it's not. Okay? Then you got the mud pan. In a traditional mud pan, what happens is you put your, as I said, you put your pre-slope, then you put your vinyl liner, and then you put your mud bed on top of that. And the mud bed is supposed to act as a filter for water that penetrates into the mud, goes down through the mud, goes to the weep holes, and goes out the drain. It's referred to as a water in, water out system. So because all the waterproofing and everything to stop the water is deep within the assembly, a lot of that assembly can get wet. For example, the mud will get saturated. Once it gets saturated, that's when the weep hole starts to work, and the water filters through the mud, goes out the weep holes and back into the drain. But that inch, 2 inches of mud will always remain wet. There's not enough time between uses for it to dry out. There's just too much water in there. Whereas with the seal system, it's just the tile and the grout, possibly the thin set, and then that can dry between uses because there's not a lot of water in there. So there's a better way. The better way is a seal system, like the Schluter system. And the key to the Schluter system, like any other of these systems, is the bonding flange. The bonding flange allows the waterproofing to be bonded to the drain assembly, so water can never penetrate. Even if it backs up, it can never penetrate into the mud or into the, because Schluter also has foam trays that you can use to create your assembly, so they can never get wet, because everything, all the waterproofing is directly under the tile. The water can never penetrate deep into the assembly. So in a nutshell, that is why pretty much these days the only thing I do is a Schluter system or another type of seal system. Laticrete has one, USG has one, Weedy has one. So these are all seal systems where water cannot penetrate deep into the shower assembly. So that's why in today's modern applications, where we have better materials than we had 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's an advancement in the way showers are constructed to protect the underlying structure and the wall cavity, and to stop water from penetrating where it's not supposed to go. In my view, a seal system is much better than a traditional system, and that's why I promote it and I use it. A lot of guys still using the vinyl line or the mud bed, and that's fine. If you do it perfectly right and you do everything the way it's supposed to do, it will work. It's worked for decades, and it'll still keep on working. The problem is a lot of guys don't do it right. And also the weep holes over time can get blocked. So once in a traditional line, once the weep holes get blocked, the water remains in the mud and has nowhere to go. So this is what I'm thinking about, why I use a seal system like a Schluter system. Also, another reason why these types of boards, the foam boards, are better is because they're so much lighter. There is no dust. There's no silicates in them. They don't make they don't create a lot of the problems, a lot of the mess that a traditional board will have. Also, I know I'm rambling on, but just trying to get out there my reasoning and why I use the systems I use. Also, another benefit is with Schluter, they allow wet shimming, and that's what I'm demonstrating in this video, is wet shimming. So when you have you have your studs, right? You put up your studs, or you tear out an old shower and you've got your studs on the wall. The 2x4s, sometimes 2x3s, 16 inches on center. When you put a level across them or a straight edge across them, they're never in the same plane. One might be in, one might be out. It could be bowed, they could be twisted. They're never perfect. I can't say never, because in this actual case, the two side walls were actually in pretty good condition. They were actually good enough that I could just apply my kerdi-board directly to them and have a flat wall. And when you have a shorter wall, that can sometimes happen. But when you have a longer wall, like 6 feet long, it's rare that you're going to have all your studs all in line, all in one plane, where you can directly apply the board to it. So what you have to do is, if you're using a cementitious backing unit like Durock, you have to shim out the walls, fur out the studs. You can sister up some new 2x4s or whatever, but you have to get everything in line if you want to get a flat surface, you have to get everything on the same plane so that when you put your wall board up, it's flat. Schluter allows wet shimming. So what that means is you can apply a bead of adhesive, thick bead of adhesive, to the shim, to the stud, put your board up, tap it into place with a level, get it flat without having to do any furring or any shimming or sistering up. You can get a perfectly flat plumb wall very easily. But compared to shimming and straightening and twisting and whatever, it's a much faster and much better. Then I use a quick setting LFT thin set. That's a large format tile thin set, which it has more body to it. Or you can use, I also use it as a quick set so that in a couple of hours I can put my screws in. If you use a regular one, you want to put it up, you want to put maybe a screw or two in just to hold it in place so it doesn't slide up and down, but you don't want to tighten that screw all the way down. Then the next day you come in and put your screws in. I use the fast setting LFT. That way, as I said, in a couple of hours, put the screws in, I'm all done. And then you continue on in the process of applying your kerdi band, etc., etc. So anyway, this video is about installing the kerdi board to the studs, wet shimming, and getting it ready for the next step, which would be kerdi band, etc., etc. So I usually put up the board first, then I put my mud in, and then I do all the kerdi band and completely seal the system, and then you can install your tile. The next video will be the mud, then the kerdi band, because I seal everything up after that. Okay, so please check me out on Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to support me to help keep these videos free. It takes a lot of time and effort to make these videos, and I've been doing it for 10 years. And I know I've helped a lot of people because I get a lot of comments, I got a lot of email, I get a lot of feedback from people that I've actually helped to help them out, get the tile jobs done. I don't take phone calls. If you try and call me, you will not get a call back. I just don't have the time for that. If you email me or post a question in the comments, I will try and answer that. I pretty much answer all the emails that I get regarding a question you might have. If I'm able to answer it, I will answer it. And the comments pretty much always go answered unless it's just a comment and not a question. Some comments can go into the spam filter and might not show up on my feed. I'd actually have to check the spam filter to see, and I don't do that often. So if you post a comment and you don't get an answer or a question, it's because I may not have seen it or it didn't show up, and so nothing's perfect. So anyway, like I said, check me out on Patreon, and if you can support me there, that'd be great. Leave your comments in the comment section below, and also don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a lot. Okay, so these are the curbs. This is the tile over here. That's for the walls. That's for the ceiling. I think this is for the floor too. Oh no, that's for the floor, and that's for the shower floor. So, and here's the kerdi board. So let's check this for fun. So the important thing to know is you never just get your wall board, whether it be Durock or kerdi board or whatever it is, and just put it up and nail it to the walls or screw it to the walls without checking everything first. So what I'm doing here is I am checking the studs for plumb. To see if they are actually, straight up and down. And also I'm putting the level across the studs to see which ones are in and out. See if they're in line or in plane. Because what happens is if they're not all in plane, what you get is you get bows or dips or valleys in the wall. So you want to check this out and make adjustments. That way you get a nice flat wall, flat plumb wall to work on. Okay, so all these things here, these are nail plates so that when you put a screw in, you can't go through the pipes here. So the two end walls were actually pretty good shape. They the studs were in plane, and they were actually level. So really, I could just attach the kerdi-board right to the studs without making any adjustments. The back wall, the long back wall, however, was a completely different story, and I decided to wet shim that one, and I'm going to show you exactly what that means when I get to it. So the two end walls can go in as is. The back wall needs to make a lot of adjustments. It was out of plumb, and all the studs were out of alignment. So if I had just attached the kerdi-board to the studs without doing anything to them, I would have had a lot of dips and valleys, and the kerdi-board would have been actually out of plumb by about a ½ an inch. Okay, so the rule for the kerdi-board is when you're installing the kerdi-board, you use washers and screws, and you put a washer and screw about every foot, and then when you're attaching a screw between seams, you don't have to put one on each side. You just put a washer that straddles the seam, overlaps the seam, and then put one screw in for both of them. So I got this wall done. Now this one here, this back wall, I'm going to have to wet shim. So because these walls are really way out of whack, it's out of plumb, the studs are not aligned at all, and if I would have attached the board, I would get a lot of dips and valleys, and the wall wouldn't be plumb. I'm going to wet shim, and Schluter actually does allow wet shimming with the kerdi-board. Other foam board manufacturers, you can do it, but I don't know if they actually approve it or not. So before you do that, you might want to check that out. Schluter does allow this without a problem. So what does wet shimming actually mean? Well, if you're going to shim a wall out or fur a wall out or whatever you want to call it, what you would have to do is add material to the studs to bring all the studs into one plane. And most of the times when the studs are bowed and they're crooked or they're in and out, it's not always the same amount when you go up and down the stud. So you would have to do varying thicknesses of material on each stud, depending on how far out of plane it was, to get a flat wall. It's a big, huge pain in the ear. And then you could also sister up some studs up against the existing studs to bring everything into plane, but that's more materials and more work. And then if you got to put a niche into a between a stud bay, that also makes that more difficult. So wet shimming seems to be the ideal solution. So wet shimming is the application of a thick bead of material onto the stud, and then you apply the wall board, or the kerdi-board in this case, to the stud, and then tap everything into place to get everything flat, even, and plumb. So the material I'm using here to accomplish this is actually a thin set, and the thin set is an LFT thin set, and it's quick setting. So the LFT, what that does is it gives the thin set more body, and the quick setting allows you to apply the screws after a couple of hours. You can use a regular LFT thin set, which is not quick drying, but you're going to have to wait overnight before you're going to put the screws in. So this way, by the time you get around to doing all the other stuff and getting ready to put the kerdi band on, etc., the thin set will be dry, and you can put your screws in without having to wait a whole day. So when you mix the thin set, the LFT thin set, you want to mix it according to the manufacturer's directions, but you also want to mix it on the low end of the water scale so that it's a little bit stiffer and it's a little bit easier to work with, and it stays where you put it. Okay, so once you got your thin set on the studs, it's time to put the board up. So what you want to do is just gently put it in place. Just gently press it into the thin set, but don't push it in. In my case, it's sitting right on the floor, so I don't need to hold it up. But if you do need to hold it up, just put in a couple of screws without screwing them down tight. So once you've got your board in place, you're going to get your level. I have a 6-foot level in this case. The longer the better. Up and down, usually you can use a 6-foot side to side. Many times you can't. You're going to have to get a shorter level. But anyway, you're just gently going to tap it into place. You're not really banging it. You're just tapping it, watching your bile, and getting it as plumb as possible. So when you got a plumb, you're also going to check it side to side, crossways, and make sure that the level touches on the whole board. And you keep on adjusting and tapping and checking until you got exactly where you want. It doesn't take long, and the board usually comes out really flat and plumb. So I haven't screwed this up yet. I just got one screw over here somewhere. Where is it? One screw there, and that's inside the other side of the the kerdi-board is holding it up. And I marked out where all the screws have to go, because there's a lot of wires and there's a couple of pipes up there, so I want to make sure that I don't put any holes in anything. So I'm just going to screw this up now, and I'm going to get this last piece in, and then I'm ready for prep for the kerdi band and everything. So in this piece here, there's going to be a big cutout for this thing here. That's going to go inserted in the ceiling, and there's 4 pipes. This guy's a plumber, so it's got everything conceivable in this bathroom. It's going to be a linear drain here. I'm going to have to prep this. I don't have the drain right now. I should be here Monday. Anyway, I'm just going to keep on going with this. Okay, so this is the last piece of kerdi-board that I'm putting on the ceiling. As you can see, I left the kerdi-board a little short on the left-hand side so I can tuck the board right into, over that, so that side is held in. And then I cut it pretty tight so it wouldn't fall. The kerdi-board is light, so it's easy to keep up. Something that you have to keep into account when you're doing tile and ceiling. On the walls, you usually put a screw and washer every foot. When you do it on the ceiling, you need to put a lot more screws in, so you're going to do about every 8 inches. I usually always mark the studs so I don't have to guess where they're going to be, and I will also mark if there's like any pipes or any wires or anything, so I don't put a screw through those. But anyway, that's pretty much the whole shower prepped with the kerdi-board. Next step is going to be the mud. So I will leave this video here, and the next video will be installing the flat pitch for the mud for the linear drain, and then after that seal up the kerdi-board and then the tile, etc., etc. So as always, don't forget to subscribe, leave your comments in the comment section below, and check out my online store at dibsmart.com, and please also check me out on Patreon. Thank you so much. I'll leave a link to all these places in the description below.